Yes, it's 1 o'clock. It's 9 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And we have our clerk, Jesse Clark. Please call the roll.
Thank you. Mayor Lamstead, are you present?
I am present.
Deputy Mayor Armstrong?
Present.
Councillor Braybrook?
Present.
Councillor Cadigan?
Present.
Councillor Franzen?
Present.
For staff, we have Donna Taggart, CAO Treasurer.
Present.
Evan Grieger, Director of Public Works.
Present.
Dylan Kosh, Director of Recreation and Facilities.
Present.
Bianca Dragicevic, Deputy Clerk.
Present.
Chelsea Carpenter, Supervisor of Waste Public Works Coordinator.
Present.
And Jesse Clark, Director of Corporate Services, Clerk is present.
Okay, thank you very much, Jesse. I just want to remind everybody that the proceedings of this meeting will be recorded and made available on the internet. And we can move on to item 1.3 of our agenda, which is land acknowledgement and moment of reflection. We respectfully acknowledge that Trent Lakes in Peterborough County are located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory and in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nation, which include Alderville, Beausoleil, Curve Lake, Georgina Island, Hiawatha, Rama, and Scugog Island First Nations. Trent Lakes respectfully acknowledges that the Williams Treaty First Nations are stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. We will now take a moment to reflect on these principles and our duties and responsibilities as members of council. Okay, thank you. We will move on to item 2 of our agenda, which is the disclosure of pecuniary interest. If anyone has a pecuniary interest in an item on the agenda, please state it now or anytime during the meeting prior to discussing anything you have an interest in. Seeing no hands, we can move on to item 3 of our agenda, which is the approval of the agenda. Entertain a motion for same. You see Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a mover and Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. All in favor? That motion is carried. Okay, we can move on to item 4 of our agenda, which is staff reports. Item 4.1 is Bianca Dragicevic, our Deputy Clerk, Evan Grieger, and Donna Taggart. Which one would you like to speak first? Or
Bianca.
Bianca, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, and through you. Before you is the report regarding the award of RFT 07 2023, which is the new dedicated mechanics facility, and RFT 08 2023 for contract administration and site inspection services for the facility. One bid was received for each RFT. One was received from MVW Construction and Engineering for the facility, and one was received from the Greer Galloway Group for the contract administration and site inspection. All bids were received in excess of the approved budget. Delegated authority delegated approval is provided to department heads only for procurements within the approved budget. Further, any procurements that are in excess of $1 million require a council resolution to award. Staff are recommending that council delegate the authority to sign any contracts or agreements that are necessary to proceed with this project to the CAO and department head in order to accelerate the process. Both the facility as well as the contract admin would align with plans and priorities that are supported by council, which include the fleet audit, the facilities master plan, as well as the 2022 and 2020 to 2026 strategic plan. It should be noted that if this construction is not proceeded with, the construction schedule of other infrastructure such as the Buckhorn Public Works building as well as the fire hall may be impacted or delayed. It should be noted that the bid submitted for the new dedicated mechanics facility is only irrevocable for 60 days as well after the official closing time. All bids were reviewed for compliance. And as well, we have attached a report from Greenview Environmental Management to support the award of RFT 07 2023 to MVW Construction Engineering, and staff recommend the award of RFT 08 2023 for contract administration to the Greer Galloway Group. If you have any questions regarding the project or purchasing or finance, one of the three of us would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Bianca. Does anyone on council have any questions? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lamstead. It was The Greenview report was pretty disappointing in terms of what it actually vetted from the submission. So I'd like to know some things like the construction company, what recent projects have they completed? Were they on time? Were they on budget? And have we talked to the clients to understand their level of satisfaction with the work that was done?
Thank you. And through you, Greenview did conduct reference checks. I don't have the background information at this time on like what questions are asked or what the review process looked like for that, but I know that the references provided through the tender process were conducted through Greenview and were satisfactory.
I think council should have that information. I think it's incumbent on us to understand these organizations, their recent work, the level to which they have done them on time, on budget, whether it met the requirements of their clients, what the relationship was like. So it's one thing to I'm sorry, I'm saying negative, I don't mean to. I mean, it's great that Greenview did that, but we need to know that. So I'm not sure where to go if we don't have that information.
Go ahead, Donna Taggart, our CEO treasurer.
Yes, thank you, and through you. So this firm has done work for the municipality in recent years. I don't know if that's helpful because Dylan could speak to that. They actually were the firm that did the siding at the Galway Hall and have done a couple of projects. So if it would be helpful, if Dylan could speak to that in working with that firm.
Yes, please do. If you were there, Dylan, please speak to that.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and Donna for the nomination. Yeah, so the Galway Hall siding and installation project completed in 2021 was completed by MVW. To our satisfaction, they worked well with the building department. They worked well with us. A kind of a feel-good story that that really, I mean, I'm not trying to sell them here, but this is, it's not something that happens every day. Is we had a squirrel pull down some of the new soffit they put up. Contractor happened to be by taking pictures for references, said, if you guys get rid of the squirrel, I'll put the stuff back up. It was back up within days after we had the problem removed, and no charges, anything like our satisfaction is really important to them. This has been the same so far with the kitchen renovation. Chris Price, the project manager for the kitchen reno, met with myself and the hall board kitchen committee. We walked through the kitchen committee's desires and their, for the particulars of the Galway Hall kitchen. Everyone's, gone away very happy with that. We're looking forward to starting the actual work in September. On that project, they completed the library OPP room repairs service work for us. They take anything from like multi-million-dollar projects straight down to $10,000 service work and even smaller. They're going to do a brick repair for me up at Galway. I've been very happy with their work. They have completed other projects. I've seen their name on, I think, some of our water system buildings in the past. I wasn't involved with any of that, but I know, my experience with them is not the only experience that the township has had, but I can't speak to anything previous.
Okay, thank you, Dylan. Any other questions? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, on their website, I don't see anything that looks like a public works depot. I see housing, daycare, lots of things. So have they in fact constructed a public works depot previously?
I think that's probably a question we should be asking them, not one of our staff. I think we need to make a little list of questions that we should be asking in BW. I don't think we'd have the answer unless someone has the answer. Right?
Through you, I do not have that answer at this time. It's definitely something that we can reach out to them, or we can review their references to see if there's anything that is similar in scope to the project.
That would be a good thing to do. I think that's necessary for us to make a good decision here. I do know that they've done some fairly large dollar value builds, but I'm not sure what the configuration was. Go ahead, Councilor Franzen.
I just happened to be working in the area when they were doing the siding on the hall. I was astounded how slow it went. And I've gotten comments from a lot of residents in the area that could camp, plus people that were on the board for the Galway Hall, and commenting how slow it went to do the siding. Sometimes one person was there, sometimes two. Sometimes it seemed like they put 3 or 4 boards up and went home.
Okay, any other questions? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Yeah, I would like to know if we have looked at other recent bids for similar kinds of structures, comparable structures like big public works depots or fire halls or whatever, and what the bids look like, what the square foot, the cost per square foot has been, so we can benchmark how reasonable the cost is that's been presented to us, particularly since we only have one bid.
Very, very good point. Go ahead, Councillor Franzen.
I'd like to expand on the point that Deputy Mayor has made. What kind of overrides over budget have they gone on a majority of the projects? Have they been within budget? Have they been above budget?
Okay, that's a legitimate question. We need to make sure that our contractor that we do hire is going to stay within the budgets. We hope the contingencies are fairly large numbers that we don't want to be getting into, I don't think. Any other questions? Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Langston. I wonder if Donna, you could walk us through the financing plan.
Sure.
You know, I know it's in your report, but if you could just speak to it so that we fully understand it.
Yeah,
that'd
for
be
sure.
very helpful.
Thank you, and through you. So as council may recall, the 2023 budget had some approved funds for the build of the dedicated mechanic and recreation and facilities project. And that was broken down. There was some development charges included. Those are determined through a study that was completed by Watson and Associates, which is a mandatory study. And they identified the use of development charges for the replacement of or future space for both of those departments. There was also a plan to use reserves in the amount of 2.133 million. Those are monies that have been collected for this purpose, and 300,000 in borrowing. So obviously this project came in higher than anticipated. So the recommendation after some discussions with the municipal auditor, with our financial institution, and with Infrastructure Ontario, we would be recommending a construction loan. And that would be undertaken. It's similar to a line of credit. So it's just an amount of money sitting there. We only pay on the amounts we draw on at the time. So we would be looking to only draw what we need. And then after the completion of the project, you would, within 120 days, have to firm up a longer term fixed loan. So Infrastructure Ontario, when I spoke to them last week, had rates 20, 25, 30 year around 4.71%. So yes, we'd be looking at having the construction loan there, but making sure in our long-term financial plan is very clear that borrowing is an option for anything over 10 years, that's a way that we should look to fund, because it really lessens the impact on the ratepayer today. So it spreads it over the, long term, which is appropriate for people down the road that move into the municipality. It's really just a way to fund, and look at all the different ways to fund. So currently the municipality, as of yesterday, our rate in our investments are in the bank are 5.24% kind of thing. So we're doing very well there. So having debt, if you work it out, really we come out, potentially ahead, which is why we really have to, it's something that we very much consider before we draw on and make sure, and that's in the policy as well. We have to make sure that we find efficiencies when we borrow, and that we'd be looking to. So was that enough, Councillor or Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, no, that's very helpful. Also, knowing what the rate is on rate of return that we get on our current investments, first of all, kudos on that. That's amazing. So yes, clearly the math makes sense that we should be going out and incurring long-term debt to support this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Councillor Braybrooke.
I have a few questions, so
Sure.
bear with me. In the financial implications background on page 4 of today's agenda, it states in part, construction loans would also allow the municipality to pay back amounts throughout the build through planned usage of reserve funds collected, development charges, tax levies, potential grants, or the use of unfunded capital. Well, I have 3 questions. I'll just go through each of them and I'll let you respond and then.
Sure, thank you.
So the first question is, what other projects make use of the reserve funds and how would they be impacted? For example, the open spaces master plan implementation and the procurement of potential development land.
Okay, so thank you, and through you. Actually, I did bring, if that's helpful, a list of the current reserves for you. I meant to hand them up before I did.
Thanks, Todd.
Sorry, just to keep in mind, those current balances don't reflect anything for 2023 usage. I typically do those entries at the end of the year. So the reserves for this project through you, Mayor Lamb's Head, have been collected, like I said, for several years. So it won't impact the money you have mentioned. There isn't something specific to the purchase of land for development, but you'll see on the list of reserves there that they are set aside for different purposes. So we have collected monies over the last few years for this project, so it wouldn't impact those because that's why we collected them. And the development charges, once again, we can only use them according to the study that's completed, and it was identified to use them for additional space for these departments.
Thank you. Second question through you, Mayor Lamshead. I realize the question may be difficult to predict, but from your previous experience with applying for and obtaining grants, what are your thoughts on the potential for obtaining grants for this project? And are there grants available every year, or is it a hit and miss, so to speak?
Right. So thank you, and through you. So grants for this type of work at this time, we have not been able to locate. And I know Mayor Lamshead has had some discussions with our MPP about that as well. So there seems to be more of a willingness to fund community hall or recreation type facilities. So there isn't funding that I'm aware of. And on top of that, most of the grants, you have to have, the work hasn't been awarded at the time where you apply. So that's why sometimes it's very tricky. You see grants are released and you're very appreciative, but they're usually a short time frame in having to submit an application. You don't have very long. And if it's a project you've already awarded, it doesn't qualify. So it has to be something, you need the shovel ready, which we talked about over time, because that's a better dynamic for sure. But yeah, at this time, and maybe Mayor Lamshead is able to speak to that as well, there isn't anything, they want more buildings that are community usage type.
Yeah, I think the support from the province would be more housing and community things. And sports and recreation, that sort of thing. That's what they're trying to get people to do, more housing. That's what their whole program right now is, more housing, more houses for more people. It's difficult to get any of that kind of support from the provincial government for a mechanics facility, unfortunately. But we never give up, right? You just keep trying.
Right.
But infrastructure is important. If you want to have more people within your community, you have to keep up on the infrastructure as well. Fire halls and.
That's absolutely true, Councillor Franzen. Okay, any other questions? Go ahead, Councillor Braybrooke.
Through you, Mayor. My last question in this segment is, could you explain what unfunded capital means and what other projects could take advantage of this?
So thank you, and through you. The municipality has used unfunded capital once in the past. We use it actually for Station 4, this fire hall. So what essentially happens is the municipality lends the department money, and that is collected. If you look at the budget for the fire department, you'll see a line for the repayment of principal and interest. And what we do is we typically give a rate that is less than it would cost to borrow, but more than we're getting in the bank. So it's beneficial to everyone. The benefits of unfunded capital for sure is that it's an open situation where additional monies can be paid back as available. So for instance, for the fire department, when they sell equipment or old trucks, that type of thing, we take that money and offset their loan because we can do that. It's an internal process. Whereas if you're through Infrastructure Ontario, it's locked in and you can't pay it early. So it's beneficial to do it, which is why I like the idea of a hybrid approach, which is exactly what we did with that building. We had reserves, we used tax levy monies, we used unfunded capital. We did not use debt because we essentially lent the money and they're paid next year in full for that loan, so to speak.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? I'm seeing Councillor Braywood with one more series.
That's 2 more questions, I promise. Thanks. Through you, Mayor Lamshead. In Greenview's July 18th, 2023 correspondence to the municipality, which is on page 7 of today's agenda, they advised the initial tender call received considerable interest with 5 potential bidders participating. And when the tender period closed on July 6th, it went from 5 bidders to 1. Did Greenview provide any reasons for this? As well, were the 4 potential bidders canvassed as to why they did not participate in the bidding process? And if so, do we have any feedback other than what Greenview provided from these 4 potential bidders? And were there any bids submitted by any of the 4? And my second question is, in the next steps of Greenview's report on page 8 of today's agenda, it makes reference to potential negotiation revisions. Does that mean there may be an opportunity to reduce the expenditure as was bid and awarded or potentially awarded? If negotiations are looking like an increase in any expenditure or proving difficult, given the winning bidder was the only tender and is in a position of strength, given that fact, what are the rules of engagement as to any lines that the municipality will not cross to move forward with the project?
Thank you, and through you, I would ask Bianca, please, to respond to that.
Okay, Bianca, would you mind answering that question?
Yes, thank you, and through you, Mayor Lamshead. So for your first question, Councillor Braybrook, so in terms of canvassing, that is not part of our process, our purchasing process. Through bids and tenders, like through the online bidding system, potential bidders can submit a no bid response. So anyone who is a plan taker can state whether or not they'll be submitting a bid. We did receive 2 from potential bidders. One was prior to the site meeting and one was post the mandatory site meeting. There are like various template responses that the plan takers can use when responding with a no bid response. And the 2 that we received were that they cannot handle due to the present workload of their business or their company. And then the second one was that they were unable to quote competitively. There were no other bids other than the one provided by MVW Construction and Engineering. No other bids were received. Does that answer your first set of questions?
Yeah, it does. Thanks, Bianca, and through you, Mayor, if I may. To the point of, do you have any other document, or could you provide documentation to council as to any sort of interaction, whether it be written or verbal, that was had with these other potential bidders?
Through you, I don't have any other documentation other than the no bid responses received. It's just like, for example, like when we had paper tendering, we would rarely, if ever, hear back from someone on whether or not they would be submitting a bid. But in this case, it is nice that with the electronic platform, we are able to sometimes get that feedback from bidders that they just won't be submitting a bid. So that would be the most information that I have at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Lamshead. Just building on that, building on your comment, John, there was something in the report that said Greenview did note a preliminary level of concern based on bidder questions during the tender period, which I probed at. And their response was the concern noted by Greenview during the tendering process was that in general, only one bidder was submitting questions. So it was a non-answer answer.
Yeah, saw that as well.
So we don't know.
I think the non-bidding on something because of workload is a legitimate thing right now. I think if you don't have the staff, you shouldn't even bid on the job because you know you can't do it. So that just would create so many problems for Trent Lakes and the bidder himself and all the sub-trades. It's just, if you don't have the people, you can't make the bid. And I think that's why some of these things are non-bidded on. It's unfortunate. It's just the state of our economy right now. Any other questions?
Through you, I can
Yeah.
try to answer Councillor Braybrook's second question regarding the potential negotiation revisions. So in our purchasing policy, there are provisions for negotiation. However, in this case, staff did review those options. And in order to negotiate, it would need to, the negotiations would be required to not change the general nature of the requirement described in the competitive bid call document. And at this time, the negotiations would likely be just minor, not substantial enough to change the entire, like the drawings, the designs of the building. I can't speak to Tyler's report specifically in terms of what those revisions or negotiations would look like, but staff would not recommend going through that process at this time.
Go ahead, Councilor Brayburn.
Just to follow up to that, Bianca, through you, Mayor. As far as the policy that you just mentioned and the negotiations, is there, if the negotiations are at a stalemate, so to speak, is there any sort of escape clause for the municipality, or is it just a formality? Like once it's awarded, it's awarded, and anything else is just you try to work through it. But so is there any sort of escape clause?
Thank you, and through you, staff would recommend that any awarding would be as negotiated. So we would go through negotiations first, but it would be like within the bid call documents, there are provisions that the municipality can award or not award that is available. But if council were to award it, I would recommend it would be as negotiated. So we would go back first.
Thank you.
Can I help you? Okay. Any other questions? I'm seeing none. Anyone prepared to make a motion? Oh,
I just have some.
Go ahead, Evan.
Thank you, Mayor Lance. Through you, Mayor Lance. And just for some clarification for Deputy Mayor Armstrong, I just did a quick look, and I know Cavan Monaghan recently built a new fire hall, or in the process of building a new fire hall, and their tender closed at 7.9 million, and it is a building of a similar size. But important to know with that building, it's on municipal services. So there's a big difference because they don't have to worry about a septic system. They don't have to worry about fire water protection or having drilling wells or doing a stormwater management pond because they have all the pipes and everything's right there already. So the 7.9, I mean, to line up with all those other things that we would have to do, that sort of kind of jives makes sense sort of with what a comparable industry standard is. And that's just in north of Millbrook there. So.
Yes, that would certainly run into like a $10 million bill if they had to do all the stormwater management, water for fire suppression. Okay. Any other questions? Anyone prepared to make a motion of some form? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Yeah, it's really important we move quickly on this. I fully understand that. And obviously, if we don't move quickly, our one bidder could move on to something else. However, I do not feel I have sufficient information to move forward with this. The price, frankly, seems reasonable based on what I know. However, I really believe I need information on, as I asked about, what recent projects has this company completed? Was it on time? Was it on budget? And what was the client feedback on it? And the second piece of information I would need is recent bids that have been submitted for comparable structures and what the cost per square foot, if that's relevant, but just comparable costs so we can compare with. And I mean, I'd like to see that in a week because I think there's a huge sense of urgency around this, but we just haven't done our Greenview, it would appear, did not do their due diligence in reviewing these submissions and/or did it, but didn't share the information with us.
That is a good point. I think we need a little more information as well. I agree with that. I think that's information that we may already have. We just don't have it open yet. So I think that's a good point. I think that's something we should do. And I don't think it's going to take long because we don't want to delay this process because we will lose that bidder. There'll be other projects that we open to bidding on. So we have one chance at this. And I think it's behooves us to try.
Sorry, may I?
Go ahead.
Marilyn, what's the window? I didn't ask, what's the window?
60
Like 60 days we have to, thank you. Okay, so I mean, as quickly as we can, a week would be almost my recommendation as part of the motion that we reconvene and look at that information.
And I go ahead, Councillor Franzen.
I would still like to add in that motion, if their projects are generally on budget.
I think that was part of that idea was what
Yep.
projects they did. Were they on time? Were they on budget? How was the client
Yep.
satisfaction? And there was
Yep.
some other
Exactly.
That was it. Yeah, yep, you got it.
Okay, well, that is a motion?
Yes, it
I'd like
is.
to get that from staff. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Brayber for a seconder. Any other conversation in regards to that motion? I'm seeing none. I will call for a vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. So a week, is that enough time? That's my only question there before we, hopefully we have most of this information somewhere. So if we get back to this in a week, we can have another special meeting. We'll rely on our clerk's department's expertise to organize us cats. But I think that's probably enough time. Okay, that motion carried. I will move on to item 5. Go ahead, Deputy. Go ahead, Jesse Clark, our
It's been
clerk.
silent for a really long time. Next week, Donna is away. So we could potentially look at having this as part of our August 8th council meeting.
How's Friday?
I just don't know if the information is that readily available. If it is, I mean, Friday's fine for, I mean, it should be from the person that's putting the tender in. It's, you know, it's their projects, it's their timelines, it's their budget, it's their,
But
but we want,
sorry, yes, we want
Yeah.
other input about their work, not just from them.
I think that's pushing things a little quick. But I mean, if we could have the information, I'm willing to have another meeting on Friday, absolutely. This is something that's very important to the municipality of Trent Lakes. I think it's the single most expensive project we've ever undertaken in this municipality, and we need to make sure we're getting it right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jesse Clark, our clerk.
I will just also note that for a special meeting, the agenda is required to be posted 24 hours in advance, which would leave staff with a day and a half.
I think our CAO treasurer might have to be on holidays when we have our meeting.
It could be.
But, you know, it's information. We can share our information. Okay, well, I don't think we have a meeting time just yet. I mean, if you want to try it for Friday, we could try, but it means it has to be advertised right away. What is the wish of council? Go ahead, Deputy.
Just a comment. I prefer that it would be any other date than our council meeting. I think this should be a special meeting, whether it be before our council meeting or after our council meeting. I would like to see it dealt with as quickly as possible, but I don't think it should be dealt with in conjunction to a council meeting.
Okay, thank you for those comments. I think it is an important part of this municipality to get this right, and so a special meeting is warranted in my view too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Councilor Braber, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor. So the information that's being sought, is it more for information, or do you think some action may come out of that? And that's hence the reason for trying to get it in sooner than later.
I believe there will be action come out of it if all this comes back to us in a favorable manner. You know, we're looking at awarding a huge tender, so, or two tenders. I mean, if everything comes back, the projects were huge and enormous and they were relevant to what we're building, whether they're on time, whether they're on budget, whether their clients were satisfied or not. And I think that makes our decision a lot easier. Okay, and I don't know if we're going to be planning a meeting right now, but I think it would be important to do so. I think if we tentatively plan a special meeting for before our August 8th meeting, you're still going to be on holidays then?
Thank you, and through you. Yeah, I leave next week. I could try to attend remotely, but I don't know where we are if I can.
It's unfair really to ask you to do that on a holiday. I think we should be able to gather the information and have our meeting. I think there's enough people in this municipality, in this office, that are quite capable of helping with this. You have a few days to get it started and roll the ball down the other alley. Okay, go ahead.
And if I can add to that, if it's difficult getting that information, I think that tells us something else.
Yes, that's a good point. Good point. I hope it's not difficult. Let's put it that way. I agree. Go ahead, Councillor.
Through you, Mayor. If I could suggest, just for availability for myself, Tuesday or Wednesday of next week, so 1st or 2nd of August.
And yeah.
And sorry, your availability on Friday? This Friday?
Yes.
On the 29th?
Yes, so I am available Friday.
Okay.
But if staff needed a little extra time, and if it's not crucial that we have our CAO attend, just to give staff a couple more days.
Yeah, I'm pretty flexible on the dates. It just can't be in the evening on the 1st. I believe that's a committee of adjustment day. So. Why don't we just leave it open for a couple of days? If we can't do it on Friday, we can't do it on Friday.
Yeah.
If we get the information back quickly, then you need 24 hours notice, correct? Okay, I think we just leave it open. If we can get the information and staff can get back to us, and we'll call a special meeting on Friday. If we can't get the information in time, we can call it for one day next week. Or have it early before the August 8th meeting.
Shall we tentatively set August 1st as a plan B?
I think, yeah.
Same time on Tuesday. So at least we've got something else to shoot for.
Okay with everyone on council? Councilor Cadigan will be on holidays as well.
What?
I intend to be taking the ferry that evening, so hopefully I'll be available by phone.
Yeah, okay, that would be great. Do remote access is fine. Okay, let's do that. I think we should do that. I think August 1st at 9 a.m. or tentatively. Okay. Go ahead, Donna. Okay.
Yes. Thank you, and through you. I just want to clarify that council were satisfied with the answers provided on the other questions today, and that, if that's the only information that is required, just so council are prepared on that date to make a decision. So I just want to make sure everything was provided today.
Yeah, everyone? I was quite satisfied with the answers. I think if council has any questions, they should get a question to our clerk so we can maybe give staff some time to get an answer. We don't want to blindside people at a meeting. So if there is another question that pops into your head, make sure staff have that. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Lampson. I guess from my perspective, and I'll see if the rest of council agrees, but I think my ask would be for council to do the work to find out the answers to those questions and not kick it back to Greenview to do that. Because I would like, and then we can question you when you have all of the details.
Yeah, you need staff to do the question.
Or for staff to find out what recent projects were completed by these companies.
I
Oh, to do the work to build it?
wasn't.
No, sorry. No, for them to get the answers to the questions directly. So what recent projects were done? Were they on time? Were they on budget? What do the clients for those projects have to say about the work and their level of satisfaction overall? And then also to find out what other recent bids, just like you did, Evan, with the Kevin Monahan build, just what other recent bids are out there that are comparable that we can have for benchmarking purposes.
Great
And
idea.
does everybody agree with?
I agree, yeah.
I just have one comment. We've always discussed that this was a joint project for Roads Department and Recreation. And all I see is mechanics facility. And I think it's important for our ratepayers to realize that this is to service two departments.
Mhm.
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 So I think that should be in our documentation.
Good point, Councillor Franzen. I agree. Okay. Do we have, is it clear as mud now? We can move on to our next item on our agenda, which is the adoption of the confirming bylaw. Anyone prepared to make that motion? I'm seeing Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a mover and Deputy or Councillor Franzen for a seconder. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can move on to item 6 of our agenda, which is adjournment. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn? See Councillor Cadigan for a mover and Councillor Franzen for a seconder. All in favor? That motion has carried. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, staff, for the answers to our questions.